was sitting here and I was considering the subject of marriage. It seems to be failing everywhere. The lines are blurred and the waters are muddied in people's marriages. Many don't seem to have a clear direction, so they're ripped apart. I think one of the most common errors is our perception of marriage before we even get started. I think many of us are concerned about the ceremony, but not knowing too much about the matrimony. Man, it's so beautiful out here today. It's almost like nature is in balance or something. That's kind of how a marriage should be, in balance. What if every season was happening at the same time? There is no harmony in that. Listen, I don't want to talk in circles. I don't have this scripted, so I'll try to keep this black and white, simple, and wrap it up in about 5 minutes. My purpose is to drop some nuggets to enhance marriages. Forgive my appearance today. So I don't really know if I'll wrap this video up in 5 minutes, but I will certainly try to make it not go past 10. But I'll be brief, I think. And so I'll start off with saying I have about 3 major points that will help marriages, I think. So as far as I go, my background is in business, a little bit of psychology, and a little bit of clinical mental health counseling. I started off in business and psychology in my earlier years at Lincoln University. Went off to the Navy, so I was still kind of in business at that point, even with the courses I was taking on the ship, finance and all that type of stuff. Worked in banks, so decent with business. I graduated from Fontbonne with my bachelor's in business administration, and so I kind of got that in my background. And so when I go to assess a marriage, I think in terms of business sometimes and how I can apply what I already know to what may help right now, marriages. And so if you ever heard of a SWOT analysis is an assessment of your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so, yes, those are terms commonly used in business communication, but we can use it in marriage too. So, for example, we can assess our strengths as an individual and as a couple, because they may differ. What we do together, we may be either stronger or weaker. Same thing with weaknesses. Assess our weaknesses individually, and then assess our weaknesses as a couple. Our opportunities, we should look at how can we succeed? What opportunities are we missing? What opportunities should we go into a little bit deeper? We could even break that down further to financial opportunities. What are we missing that could make us a better couple? Spiritual opportunities. What are we missing that could make us a better couple? Sexual opportunities, emotional opportunities, physical opportunities. What can make us better? And those are the same questions a business would ask. A nonprofit organization would ask, what can make us better? And threats. What's the threat to my marriage? Am I a threat to my marriage personally? Are my children a threat to my marriage? What's going on that's a threat? Am I a married person still hanging out with tons of single friends and they have no regard for my married life, for my relationship, because I'm doing those things that I used to do and they don't really care what happens? And that's not the only example. And it's not to say that one can't have friends or anything like that, but we should at least assess, is it a threat to my marriage? Does my husband agree? Does my wife agree or disagree? And you know, what's the point of emphasis? And so we could look at those things. And so anyway, that's a SWOT analysis. We can kind of do those type of things in our marriage to, you know, make it a little bit better. And so my second point or nugget that may help would be making smart goals.
Where did we go wrong? Is it all my fault?
Smart goals are goals that are specific, they're measurable, they're attainable. They are results based, they are time specific. And again, that's another business term that we've heard of before, but we can use those in our marriage. I'll give you one example. Goals change. They can be short term or they can be long term. For example, if I if I was raising my son to either avoid conflict and fights, or either maybe I'm training him to fight better. I'm training him like this in first grade or second grade, but maybe my goals change by the time he's in 10th grade, because now he's 6'10" or 6 foot forever, 6 foot 200, whatever. He's big. Now I need to maybe reposition those goals. Maybe I'm training him not to bully others. Maybe I'm training him on character, just something different. I'm reassessing, and I can do that when I look into my marriage and I make my goals specific. I make them measurable. I make them attainable. Another thing about attainable, well, take attainable. The woman, maybe she expects the man to become a spiritual giant, T.D. Jakes, in less than a year from the time they got married, when he never had any training in that in the first place. It may take more time, and so maybe that's not an attainable goal in that specific period of time. So we may have to reassess that and make that a little more attainable. Maybe the man says, I want a wife who can cook and clean, but maybe she's never cooked and cleaned before in her life. Let her start off with a cake, for God's sake. So anyway, what's attainable? Those are the type of things you can sit down and talk to one another about. Otherwise, you'll be divided. If you're divided, you just can't go in the same direction. I mean, you can take that from any geometry class. If you are 3 degrees one way or the other over a period of time, you're going to be very far apart. So you definitely have to come back together. So anyway, those are a couple of the first 2 points. Maybe a SWOT analysis on your relationship could help. And if you have issues with that, call somebody who knows what they're doing. Call somebody who has some experience in marriage. Call someone who has some experience in counseling, spiritual counseling, or professional mental health counseling, what have you. Same thing with SMART goals. You can apply that to your marriage. And so that's it for those first 2 points. And so we'll move on to the last point. All right. So my final section is training. I don't expect to get a ton of stuff accomplished. This was only supposed to be like an intro video. It's not the end all, but it's just nuggets, and maybe you can use it, maybe not. If you don't like it, discard it, throw it away. But if you can, maybe it accomplished my objectives, which was, to cause you to think, and maybe it would improve a relationship, or at least cause you to think a little bit deeper before going into a marriage in a relationship. So anyway, in clinical mental health counseling, we have something that we call psychoeducation. And so we just give training to the person, or expose them to something that perhaps they did not know before, that would cause them to function on a little bit higher level. Well, in marriage, it's the same way. We need to be exposed to something that we were not exposed to before. It would cause us to function on a little bit higher level. We go to school for 13 years to be socialized into a society so that we will not be deviants to the norm in that society. Of course, it's going to be different from country to country, society to society. In our country, we go to school about 13 years. We may go an additional 4 to 8 years or so of secondary training. And so anyway, we need training in marriage. If we did all of that education and still had issues living life and functioning at a high level in this life, think about marriage. We have no training in marriage a lot of times, and we expect to function at a high degree, and that's not always the case. Most times it's not the case. And so for me, myself, and my own marriage, I was friends with her way back when I was like 16. She was probably like the second girlfriend that I had when I moved permanently to St. Louis. And so we had a friendship that was platonic, not based on sex. We didn't have to worry about the complications of shacking and macking and all that other type of stuff that was a distraction. And so that's the thing, the friendship. The education component. In my church, we receive counseling. Most people do have counseling, but most people complain about the little 4 sessions that they get prior to marriage. Us, we had about 25 or so spiritual growth classes to know that we were going in the same spiritual direction. Then after that, we had about 27 marriage classes. Yeah, about 27 marriage classes to know we were going in the same direction. We had other classes as well, but this was an educational component, and the training goes on and on and on. So And so the idea is to get ongoing education and training so that you can continue to adapt to the things that marriage presents you with, life presents you with. It's also to get an objective opinion from a third party. Sometimes you need that objective opinion, whether that third party is your God or your therapist or whatever. But you need to look at things objectively sometimes, because your way may not be the way. And, if it's not getting you to where you want to be at in your marriage, then sometimes you need to have something else that you could possibly give a try, at least, an opportunity. So anyway, I hope that this helps somebody rather than hurt them. And again, it's an opinion. It's a combination of that's clinical experience and personal experience. So anyway, in the future, if you like what you hear, I'll kick you some business cards. I can deal with you at my place of work, or me and my wife. I don't know. So that's it for right now. To him who have an ear, or her who has an ear, let them hear. Talk to y'all later.
Is it on my